Through our journey and through the documentary of Mallory's Army, what I really wanted to do was continue this voice and continue to showcase other people's stories. Because I think that one of the biggest obstacles that we have is that people feel sorry for you for a few months. You know, they feel sorry, but then they expect you to move on, and what they don't understand is that you never move on. So I wanted to use my life to showcase other people's stories and the things that happen to them, but also what they're doing. They're taking on challenges that I didn't know needed to be taken on, and now that I'm living it, I go, oh, now I can get it. Well, Sandy, it's so good to finally meet you face to face. I feel like we've had these really great conversations, but we wear the same shoes.
We're in the same club.
We are. So it's
the club
great.
That we were involuntarily inducted into.
That's right. So it's great to finally meet you and put a face with that great voice and smile.
Yeah.
I start every conversation, which was what happens to be my favorite question, which is, tell me about Shane.
Shane is my youngest out of 3 boys, so you can imagine, you know, it was, you know, but because he's the youngest, I think that that's what formed his personality, to be so happy-go-lucky, because he was the youngest of 3 boys. You know, there was never a fight for attention or anything like that, but it was just like, all right, I get it, you know, just I'll go with mom. So he was like my little partner everywhere that we went. Everywhere I went, he was with me. We would go, you know, drop one off, go to a game or whatever, or after his soccer matches. It was just usually he and I.
Yeah.
And I remember the last Halloween, I was so bummed out because I'm like, it's the first year that I was not cool to go trick-or-treating with.
I know.
All 3. And I'm like, what the heck am I gonna do? And I was like waiting around, and Shane felt so bad, and he calls me on my cell and he's like, Mom, will you come trick-or-treating? I'll hold your hands. And he was just the best kid. The best, most polite kid.
I mean, he was the happiest kid, and it was just a joke because we used to comment, no matter what, Shane would always be happy. He would turn a negative into a positive every single time.
I remember he and Griffin were in this sport thing, and they were doing, I have a video of it too, like the 3-legged race, and they had to get on this thing where they, like all on like this 4x4, 2 4x4s, and it had ropes, and they won twice. And this lady comes up to me and she looked angry, and I'm like, oh my God, what do they do now? You know, it's like, yeah. Oh. And she goes, are these your boys? And I'm like, yeah, why? And they had won twice, and she goes, I just want you to know that without looking for anything, they gave their prizes away because they felt that they had enough and they wanted the other kids to have some. You know, that was Shane.
Tell me about Shane's love for Broadway, because I know that's an important part of your journey, and it was definitely an important part of Shane's journey. So talk to me about when he first got the theater bug and his favorite show. Walk us through those memories with Shane.
The boys pretty much grew up in California. We moved back to New York in 2015, early 2015. And one thing I always promised them I would do is I would take them to all see a show. I mean, you go to a play every year, you know, here and there,
yeah.
But it was never anything like, I said, Broadway's really fun. It's there's something different. It's not cool. Like going to, yeah, you have to do it at least one time, just try it. And so when we moved back, Les Mis was going off Broadway. So, and the tickets were, you know, not that crazy. So I got tickets, and I took them when Griffin was at a game, so it was Ryan and Shane. And I was like warning them, like, this is heavy stuff.
Right.
You probably aren't going to understand a lot about this, and
it's a big show for their first
heavy.
One. Yeah.
Yeah. But the music is great, and the story is good. I said it's sad. You know, it's kind of sad. And I'm thinking they're going to fall asleep. They're going to want to go home during intermission. I was for sure of it. Well, Shane was at the edge of his seat the whole time. Like, he kept holding my leg and my arm, like, oh my God, every time something. And he didn't want to get up for intermission. He wanted to sit. He wanted to make sure that he was there when the play started. And I kind of started getting that this was something that he was really into, unlike anything that he had ever. I mean, he had passions for other things before, but nothing like this. So after the play, he just looked at me and goes, Mom, that was the best experience of my entire life.
But the clincher was for his birthday, I got him tickets to go see Phantom of the Opera because through a mutual friend, I knew one of the people in the production, and Shane was able to go backstage. And the second that happened, that was like, I could see the change in him. I could physically see it. And they told me that in all the years they've been doing it, they had never seen anybody that was so excited. You know, it is such interesting, profound questions for a kid, you know, and they knew it then. And so up in his room, you'll see the Phantom of the Opera after the show sent him, they all signed it. And that was his prized possession, Phantom of the Opera. And he, instead of like the normal songs that kids listen to, he had Broadway musicals. That's all he would listen to.
You shared recently on social media that when you finally opened up Shane's room, that there was something Broadway related next to his nightstand, and I remember you saying this was left for me.
It was, no, it was The Giving Tree, a book.
A book.
Left it right there on his little bench, you know, 'cause
waiting for you.
The bed was higher and he was, you know, so little. I had a bench there so he wouldn't trip.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I would like for you to take us down and our listeners and things like that. Now, take me through that day. Tell me was there anything peculiar that day? Was there anything that stood out? Walk me through that day.
Well, it was a normal day.
What day of the week was it?
That turned out to be the worst day of my life. It was a Wednesday.
You too, huh?
Wednesday.
I always say to our listeners, it's Wednesday, but you already know that. And I find myself reliving and...
I hate Wednesdays. I hate Wednesdays.
Wednesday.
And, you know, there's certain moments in a person's life that it's before that and after that. And that day was, for me, 7:36 p.m.
I tell everybody that moment, our DNA changed. It's that moment. Well, walk me through what you did that day. Start out from the morning and walk us through what your day was like that day.
So I share custody with my ex-husband. I usually have them on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and then he'll have them on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then we alternate weekends.
Right.
So this was a Wednesday, so they were at my house. Then everything was normal. He stayed home from school on Monday. And he said he had a stomach ache. I didn't think anything of it because there was no change in his demeanor because I spend time with the boys. It's not like I just like push them off. I love spending time with them. I love making memories and showing them new things. Like you never know what's going to spark that passion, you know. And you don't need to spend a lot of money to just hang out with your kids, you know. So anyway,
so he had a stomach ache on Monday.
He had a stomach ache on Monday. Kept him home.
Which we all know now is a sign of anxiety. Right.
But
not in that
nothing
moment.
Added up, and I'm very in tune. My instincts
same,
and
I understand.
my mommy, you know, like you know. And I knew he wanted to. I just kept him home. Yeah, but there was nothing really extraordinarily out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Nothing, because I think about it. I'm haunted by it. What did I miss? That's why I've done so much research and created these courses and doing all these things, because I'm looking for answers. I'll never find them.
Right.
And this is what I tell people, Dianne, and you're going to know this because it's if it could happen to us, it could happen to anybody.
Well, that's why we're doing this.
And
absolutely.
I don't think people really fully understand that because, you know, I can honestly say if it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. And I know you now, and I know that if it could happen to you, you know, and to Mallory and to Shane. And it's odd because they're the two kids that you would never in a million years, you know, they're not, they were outgoing. She was a cheerleader. Shane was theater, and he was the class rep. And, you know, so anyway, that day, it was just, so Monday, kept him home. It was a normal day, you know. We laughed. There was nothing. He didn't act. He was laughing. I took pictures of him.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, goes to school. He said he was fine. Everything was perfectly normal. He comes home every day. He skips up the driveway, always with a smile on his face. In fact, I think I have a couple of videos of him doing that. He just was always so happy. And he comes home, hi Mom, give me a kiss, and chat. We had our normal night. Nothing out of the ordinary. Wednesday, it was time for him to go to school, and I had asked him, you could stay with me. You don't have to go to Dad's tonight. You could just stay with me. And he's like, no, I'm fine. Love you. And got on the bus, you know, last words to me were, I love you, Mommy. And I went to work, And on Wednesdays, I would come home, and that was my night to go to the gym.
All right.
So I was really actually looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of, with
You time.
everything. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not enough moms spend time with them.
And summer was
Yeah.
coming up, and I'm like, oh, I have to try to get into shape. So go to the gym, leave my phone in the car. I always bring my phone in with me, just in case, God forbid, there's an emergency. But this time I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to take some me time. And then I'm going to go home, have a glass of wine. All my girlfriends at the gym, they were all going out. I'm like, I just want to go home and chill. So I go to the gym, and I remember when I got out of the gym, I took a deep breath. And it's almost like as if that was the last clean, deep breath I'll ever take. Because it was like, that was the last time I remember taking a deep breath without having such raw grief. And, it'll never be the same again. You can never take a deep breath the same way again. And I remember taking a deep breath and going to my car, and it was like a drizzly, dreary night. And I got in the car, and I had like 40 or something missed calls from Ryan, my oldest son. And I was like, okay, this is not good. I call him up. I'm like, what's wrong? What's up? He's like, I don't want to really get into
Ryan? No, I understand.
too much details. At the time, it was 14, maybe just turned 15. I don't know. I'm trying to figure the dates in my head. His birthday's on April 1st. So anyway, I assumed it was Joel. Maybe Joel had a heart attack, or by the way that Ryan was talking, clearly something happened to somebody. And when Joel got on the phone, my heart sunk. Like everything sunk. I was in my car, and I remember my head just turned like numb, ringing, because I knew that there had to have been something wrong with Griffin or Shane, And obviously it was Shane, and one of the ambulance guys, the EMTs, got on the phone. They're like, "Listen, there's been an accident. I can't go into detail. We're working on your son right now." When you hear that we're working on your son, that's like every parent's nightmare, right?
Yes. Because
what do you
in
mean
that
working
moment,
on him?
Right. I remember.
What the heck? Yeah. It's like, whoa, working on him, and I don't want to cry, but I knew, but I still had faith.
My brother showed up, and when I saw my brother cry, I knew. My brother used to be a police officer, and when I saw him, he's seen everything, I knew it. But I still, I didn't know what happened. I didn't even know what had happened at that point. I just knew that I didn't care. I just wanted him to be okay. And then when I got up there, I never left. I slept there, and I just, played Broadway musicals for him the whole time, and I just kept telling him I was there, and I couldn't even go to the bathroom. I didn't want to leave the room. I just was praying for a miracle. And the doctors, they had told me, that the scans were not good. And so I suddenly remembered that a guy I went to high school with is, I guess, a very good, one of the best in the country neurologists or And so I said, well, and the name came back to me, and it turned out that Shane's attending doctor in the pediatric ICU knew him or something. And so he called him for me. And my friend came the following day. He came all the way and from the city just to look at the scan for me. And it was when he told me, then I knew. And that was the worst. And, I felt bad that he had to tell me. But, and then I just, with my boys, to see the pain. Yeah, that was the hardest. They're brothers. And his brothers were the ones that decided to donate the organs. I wasn't even in the frame of mind. So after Shane died, I started doing a ton of research. I must have missed something. What did I miss? How could I have saved my son's life? I couldn't,
Well, my name is Christine Jeffrey. I've been a psychotherapist for about 15 years. I work with kids in anxiety and depression. Another specialization is kids with ADHD. The signs of suicide or suicidal thoughts or depression in children, they tended to withdraw They tend to not have as much interest in things that once held their interest or gave them joy or that they were passionate about. And sometimes, sadly, there are no signs. Psychology, psychotherapy, caring for children is not an exact science, and that's part of what's so tragic about it, is it sometimes in certain cases seems to come out of nowhere, and it actually does.
I tell my boys every day that I love them. They know that they're loved. They know that they're safe, and they know that nothing's going to happen to them. They know it, and they just truly inherently know that I love them, and they love me equally. When I started thinking about things, I realized there's a huge difference between being told that you're loved and loving yourself. And I had no indication that Shane didn't love himself. I had none, because he's that kid, he would talk to everybody. So I'm still struggling to find the answers, and my biggest lesson to parents is, honestly, if this can happen to me, it can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. It can, because it's not like there were signs that I missed or anything. There's nothing.
But I think the important thing is that children's suicide and children's depression and anxiety is significantly different than what adults' suicide and adult depression and anxiety, because their brains are not fully developed.
Right.
And so we cannot use a one-fix-all
Right.
for what's going on.
No.
We're all the same inside. Generally, we all have the same feelings. We all feel shame, anger, guilt, hopelessness, worthlessness. Our biggest fear as human beings is somebody's going to shine a flashlight on us and out us as, a bad person, or, just somehow flawed, fundamentally flawed as a human being. Kids have those feelings too. And we can correct those, because it's not true. It's not true. Depression lies to us. In the depths of depression, especially kids. The thing is, with adults, we've been around a while. We know when something's off. We're acutely more aware of, feeling shame, feeling depression, when we're sliding into it. Kids don't know that. So they need the adults, the trusted adults, the caring adults, to guide them out of that. There's always hope.
So let's talk a little bit about Ryan and Griffin. Where are your boys at? What are they? What are some of the fond moments that Griffin and Ryan have about Shane?
Oh, God. I mean, their innocence and their childhoods were stolen.
I say that all the time, that Carly now sits at the adult table. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
They didn't. And there's guilt, because of course they're remembering every single fight they ever had. Brothers, things that were said. You're going to relate to this. There's certain moments, everybody else calls them memory triggers. Mm-hmm. I call them bitch slap moments. That's what I call them, because it hits you on the side of the face, like it feels like a cold brick. Yeah. Bam. And it could be the silliest thing.
Yes.
Like
walking through the grocery store. I always say,
I hate the grocery store. I've only been to the grocery store maybe 3 times. I can't.
I even say it out loud, I'm shopping for 3. And it is very difficult. Packages and things are done in 2s. And so now I always have to cook in 4s, and I'm still there's 3 of us.
Or when you go away and you're only buying one, like you go away with your husband, and you only have to get 1 sweatshirt or whatever instead of 2.
Right. I still, to this day, shop for Mallory. I walk through the stores and I look at stores and I say, Mallory would love this. Mallory would have loved this. Mallory would love this. So I still actually shop for her. I never put it in my cart and I never buy it, but I do.
The last Christmas, I had gotten Shane, as a surprise, tickets to go see Wicked and Chicago. He never even cared what play he went to.
Right.
He just loved to go. I mean, he would sit there with a Sour Patch and a Shirley Temple, and even if it was like a half hour before the show started, he wanted to be the first one online. He did not want to miss one thing. He didn't get up during intermission. He just loved it so much. So I was really excited to give him these Christmas presents. Right. But there's they're light, and you know, kids, they want to see like big presents.
Right.
And they always had a way of, as I would venture to say all kids do, downstairs in the middle of the night to see if Santa came.
Right.
And even though I don't know if they believed in it or not, but I
always told my children, you cannot believe if you don't want to. If you don't believe, you get nothing. And to this day, Carly at 16 will be like, I believe. I'm like, good, you
mine
better
too.
believe.
I mean,
Yeah.
mine, I don't think that they
you
do,
know, they
but
know what
everything
they
is
don't
from
know.
Santa.
Exactly.
You know, it's still always, and it will always be from Santa until I'm 90 years old.
Moms buy socks and underwear and deodorant. Santa brings the cool stuff.
That's
I get
exactly
it.
right.
Yes.
Moms get the stocking stuffers.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to prevent them from doing that because I didn't want to hear, oh man, mine's, you know, you got more than me. I don't know if that would happen, but I just wanted to do something really fun. So I had heard someone had done this before, and I said, that's going to be a fun idea to do it. To take a whole thing of wrapping paper, and the doorway into the room where the Christmas tree was, I just covered the whole thing with wrapping paper, from the floor, from the ceiling to the floor, and I like duct taped the sides so that, like, I really taped it up so that nobody.
So they couldn't sneak.
No, there was no way. So
I love that.
yeah, it's a great idea, right? Because then you could go in the morning, and then it could be a really fun surprise.
Then you can actually get a night's sleep.
Exactly. Because, you know, once you're done and trying not to make noise and they're still sleeping, that's a win.
Right.
You know, that's a win. So anyway, the next morning, Griffin always likes to go down and see the movie Elf. This is like his thing. And sit there looking at the Christmas tree. So anyway, Griffin's like, Mom, I can't remember exactly how it happened. All I know is we take down the thing, and there's Shane sitting in there watching Elf on the thing. He scurried underneath it. He found the way to get underneath it, and he just kind of shimmied his way without ripping it or anything. He just And a bitch slap moment was about a week ago. I had a friend coming over, and I was in the dining room doing something, and I noticed a piece of the paper was still up there, a little piece. And it was like instantaneously brought back, like laying on the floor, cracking up at the fact that Shane's just in there. Mom, Santa came, like nothing.
Don't you feel like in those moments, in one moment, you're so happy that Christmas wrapping paper presented itself because it catapulted you back to that moment of when you were together as a family.
It brought back a memory that I never forgot about, but it was just like, wow, instantaneously it brought it back to my mind.
You can smell it, you can taste it, you can feel it. I love that.
I remember everything about that day too, you know, and we were just laughing about it. Like only Shane could figure that out. What'd you do with that piece
of paper?
It's still up there.
Yeah. So did you leave Shane's room? We talked about the book that you found, The Giving Tree. Is Shane's room just as he left it still?
His water bottle's still there. I haven't even like laid down in his bed. I don't like to go in there because then it just makes me sad.
Right.
And I don't want to be sad. You know, not too long before it happened, he had asked me, he just was infatuated with these little apartments in the city, Manhattan. So he wanted to have his room decorated so that he could feel like he had a Manhattan apartment.
I love that.
For whatever reason, it was Christmas lights. He just wanted it to have that vibe. And so one day when he was at school, it was like 90 degrees, or at least it felt like it. And I was like hammering up, cursing, trying to tape Christmas lights around the circumference of his room so he would be surprised. You know, I see those, and that
Is
hurts
his door
me.
open or closed?
Well, it was closed, but the cat goes in there every now and again just to kind of.
Yeah.
And I think his brothers have gone in there, I think, and talked to him. I think, you know. So, but yeah, it slowly has opened a little bit, so which made me kind of peek my head in, and I'm like, and I always say something to it. I don't know if you do this, but every time I go up or down, I'm like, hey, monkey, you know, or when I'm about to do something, I'm gonna make you proud, monkey. You watch, I'm gonna make you proud, and like I'll talk to him. I talk to him all the time, but walking by his room, it's so hard.
Yeah.
His name is still on his door. You know, it's torture. You know, it's a constant reminder.
I feel like what am I, 7 or 8 months ahead of you? So Mallory's room, there were memorabilia from the funeral at the foot of her bed. Like everything was just, go put this in Mallory's room. I can't deal with this right now. I can't read this right now. I don't want to
all
break
my
that
stuff
card.
is in bags downstairs. I don't want anybody touching Shane's room.
So exactly. So I put it in, but I will say just recently, I went into Mallory's room, and I was embarrassed that I let her room get to a place that she would be mortified. And so I went and bought new linens, I went and bought new comforter, and I brought it to 2019. I brought it up to where it would be.
It makes me sad, you know, because it's so senseless, and it's just, it shouldn't be.
No, we weren't done. I say Mom interrupted all the time. But I will say that bringing her room to present day with all of the articles, I got a hope chest and I put it at the foot in her room. So all the newspaper articles and all the things that go in there, because I felt like the things were beautiful and they needed a permanent place, and for the longest time. So I did allow Mallory's room to grow up. I allowed it to mature with her.
So not there yet.
That's why I'm saying to you, we're about a year apart.
Yeah.
As to where it was, and people told me that I would go through this phase.
But how do you stay there? Like, I don't know if I could stay where I am.
How do you stay where? In the moment?
No, in the house.
Oh, I'm not ready to leave the house. I've said that for a very long time, that I don't know what I'm going to do. How do you leave the house that your child died in? How do you leave how do you leave the home where it was their home?
I know, but I feel like it's just too many memories. Like, we have so many problems. Like, here's another side effect. Griffin doesn't even want to stay at the house.
Right, and you have to.
But it didn't happen at my house.
Right, but it's still, you know, remember, this is their journey, and I always have to constantly remind myself. I asked Carly if she wanted to be here today so that she could meet you and what have you, and she goes, I'm just going to go home. You know, we have to remember as moms that they have their own journey.
Yep.
We have our journey.
Absolutely.
And for me, it was important that Mallory's room grow into who she is today. And I caught myself staying in 2017. I felt myself living there. And so on the outside world, you know, I had the foundation, but at home, I don't know about how I will leave and how that will happen. I do know that I've had very thought-provoking conversations with other moms who have said, you know, one mom moved, sold her house, and their guest room is a representation to, you know, her son. So it's half guest room, half his room. And then, you know, there's other moms that have said, I have a mom whose son had a drug overdose, and he died at the kitchen counter, where they had just spent thousands of dollars redoing their kitchen. She's like, I can't even cook in the kitchen. She goes, because all I see is my son slumped over the island.
See, there's some things that people don't really think about, you know?
It is, and that's where I say that the PTSD, and why I wanted to do this series and why I wanted to talk to people, because I think that one of the biggest obstacles that we have is that people feel sorry for you for a few months. You know, they feel sorry, but then they expect you to move on, and what they don't understand is that you never move on.
You know what I hate? I hate so much, and I just wish people would stop. At least it's just a thing for me. I hate it when people say, oh, I can't imagine.
I know. And you know what I say to them?
Of course you can't.
No, that's exactly what I say to them.
And I know they don't mean it in any horrible way.
No.
But that's just the one thing. It's like, no, you really can't.
You can't.
And I'm glad that you can't.
Right, exactly. And we are glad that you can't, because you can't. There are no words, and they're not. But that's the reason why I started to do this, and I wanted to share Mallory's story, and I wanted to share Shane's story, and all the people that I come in contact, because they're taking on challenges that I didn't know needed to be taken on, and now that I'm living it, I go, oh, now I can get it.
Right.
So it will happen again when you're ready. Not when the world says you're ready, not when Griffin says you're ready, not when Ryan, not when Joel, not when anybody, but when you're ready. So now Mallory's room is propped open, and her room, I took down some of her artwork and placed it throughout the home so that I can see it every day without having to go into 2017. Her room is a representation of who Mallory is today. And that was a very difficult transition for me, and it didn't take time, it took work. It took a deliberate act of work.
Must have been very hard.
But I will say that I'm glad. I still have the same thing, but I did have this aha moment the other day that I was ready for part of my life to evolve. There's things around the house that are, you know, like Mallory's shoes are still left in the garage, right where her running shoes, right where she left them. Those will stay. But there were things that were left around the house that I did find myself in a position where I was ready to say goodbye, not to Mallory, but just to the materialistic things that had really nothing to do with it. You know?
Well, for me, I think this is, again, something that people don't think about.
Right.
One of the hardest things, you know, I have nephews, so all the clothes have always been just given to them. Those are great clothes, and why not, you know? But the one thing that you don't pass down is socks and underwear.
Right.
And throwing those away, like, killed me, because it just was like,
how can you throw his things in the trash?
or the fact that I have to throw his things in the trash. The fact that, you know, his little feet were still the form, you know, like in the socks, you know, like the shape. And it's like,
So I'll give you a suggestion for that. Take his socks and donate them to a daycare so that they can make sock puppets. Because I think what for you and I know this as I talk to other moms, it's really about how our children can continue to live on in the form that they are in right now, in the spiritual form. How can Shane's spirit touch another child's life, and how can he continue?
he already has, though,
Right.
for real.
So that's a great transition into, so talk to me about, we both have foundations, we both have the same cause. Share with our listeners and people, talk to us about Shane's imagination.
I'm channeling all of my energy, other than for my boys, into creating Shane's imagination, the foundation, and it promotes kindness. It's just being nice, you know, just why would you have to hurt somebody else's feelings to make yourself feel better? You know, it just doesn't make any sense. When I started doing the research, I realized bullying has completely changed. And so many, including myself, are carrying around antiquated ideals of what it is. And times have really, really changed. And, you know, be nice, social media, we all know that stuff. But really, bullying has changed. And I really started thinking about it. And, you know, how do you make change? Because people ask me that all the time. And I said, the adults need to start leading by example, you know, and it's how hypocritical is it for us to say, you know, don't be mean to other people, and then they see somebody on the news and they're like, oh my God, look how fat and old she got. She looks like crap, you know, like people don't even realize that those little things resonate. Kids watch, and it's not just if you're a parent, it's all adults. I mean, you see it all the time on the news with the baseball games or the soccer games and the parents getting in a fight. It's like, what example is that teaching those kids? Not just your own kids, but every kid there, you know? So it's like, do as I say, but don't do as I do.
Where does the responsibility seem to fall, where it's lacking, where we can, you know, take more action, insist on more accountability? That's a very complicated question. I think it has to start with compassion, and which is there already, presumably, right? People that work with kids. One of the things that has to happen and continue to happen is people being advocates for children, because there is a lot of like getting lost in the shuffle of bureaucracy, or in this isn't our fault, you need to take hand it back over to the parents, or the parents handing it to the school, to diffuse some of the shuffling around of responsibility. One of the things that has been helpful is finding an advocate for the child, and that's one of the roles of a therapist that works with children. It's not just, okay, I'm going to see you for 50 minutes and we're going to try to raise awareness and problem solve and, work together. It's also reaching out to the school and the doctors and the people that see children on a daily basis and getting them on board with a plan. I'm optimistic that the trend, or seemingly the trend, of people being compassionate and open to accepting mental health issues and help for mental health issues will continue the way I've seen it kind of morph over the past 15 years, from something of shame of, oh, you've got problems, we don't have problems, oh, you have problems. Like that's something to be feel shame about, and being stigmatized, to shifting, which it is, but my hope is that it'll continue to shift toward more of good self-care.
But there's so much that we can do. I mean, part of what I'm trying to do is put bullying prevention programs in the community. I still don't understand why we mostly rely on the schools to address bullying when it happens everywhere. Bullying is not isolated to just happening at school. Bullying happens everywhere. Adults bully. Workplace bullying is a huge thing now. Adults, number one, start leading by example. Show kids, set the example how to act, right? 70% of kids have witnessed bullying, and they don't say anything. Most of them say nothing. So when you think about that, 70% is a lot, right? And it's probably even higher. If 1 in 4 kids are bullied, and 70% of kids have witnessed bullying, and then you have the bullies themselves, I could pretty much guarantee that every kid has witnessed bullying in some way, shape, or form, whether it's on the soccer field, the baseball field, the schoolyard, whatever. They've had to, and most of them say nothing.
You go to schools and share Shane's story and speak.
I speak, and also with businesses and adult organizations, not just about the bullying stuff, because adult bullying is
It's behavior management.
it's right.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I think what happens when you become an adult is the terminology changes somewhat. And what is bullying, especially in the workplace or in neighborhoods, it happens every single day, but we don't recognize it as bullying. Maybe we say he's a jerk or he's just whatever, but it's a real issue.
It is.
But the big thing is, and I know you're going to agree with me, and I'm really working hard because we have got to lead by example. Mm-hmm. And it's not just in our own homes and with our own families, it's everywhere. And we see it on the news all the time. The baseball games where the parents start fighting or, yelling at the referee, you suck, it's just, okay, what do you think is going to happen? The kids are going to see that and you're a hypocrite. So what are they going to do?
Well, I think children are desensitized to it. It's really come down to that if I see my greatest examples, which is my mother and my father, if our greatest examples are behaving this way, then it gives our children to be permission that way.
That's right. So, and that's the importance of more and more people everywhere, adults, leading by example.
There's so many facets of bullying that we don't really recognize as being bullying because you have to understand the dynamics of the group, As an example, a kid, if there's a one-time fight, that's a one-time fight. That's not bullying. But if it's teasing and somebody, but you have to understand the dynamics. If 2 kids get in a disagreement over the soccer ball or whatever, and they're friends, that's a disagreement, But bullying is so much more than that now. It's leaving people out on purpose. So if you see somebody sitting alone, is that person sitting alone because they want to be alone or is it because they're being excluded? And anybody that's supervising kids, unless you know the dynamics because you're paying attention, you'll never know if it's a one-off thing or if it's actually bullying. And so I'd like to see in the communities people that volunteer, anybody that just whatever, to know what bullying is, to have to be, I created an online course that people could take, but whatever it is, as long as it's based on evidence, research-based evidence, not just like something that they found on the internet and, And the other thing is getting communities involved, local businesses all over. I call it the anti-bullying brigade. And it's just not tolerating unkind behavior. So if you see somebody that's acting awesome, and put a community program together, not just anti-bullying, but you could talk about teamwork. There's so many different facets, but to empower the kids, get the kids involved, make posters. We don't tolerate that kind of behavior anywhere because it's really addressed only in the schools. And I ask why? Why? Bullying happens everywhere.
We tend to say, people are bullies, they are bullies. Guess what? We are bullies. Everybody has been bullied or has the capability of being a bully. One of the things, a misconception is that we can point at it and say, yes, that was bullying. A lot of it is a child's perception. Bullying is persistent, it's repetitive, but it's also the perception of the child. Some children can be bullied, and I'm not saying like let it run off, like roll off their back, but they're more resilient, and they might not complain about it as much, or they might process it differently. But some children, and this is where it gets very murky, some children fall victim to it, and their perception of what's happening, especially if they're in that tender identity, developmental stage, are going to incorporate it into their identity, and that's where we have problems. So education still needs to happen, understanding about it. Another way of saying it is, if you feel harassed as an adult, if you feel harassed, right, we've heard that word in the news, you're being harassed. Nobody can tell you you're not being harassed. If you feel harassed, you're being harassed. If you feel like you're being bullied, you're being bullied. And we need to, look at it through the child's eyes more than, how we experience it.
First, understand bullying's changed. It's a completely different animal than it was. And to say that kids are kids, or it's a rite of passage, that's crap. It's bullying has changed. So understand what it is, recognize, empower your kids, show them, lead by example, show them what the right thing is, integrity and kindness. And I say this all the time, and this is part of what I talk about at the schools. This generation really has the ability to have integrity and kindness, be that footprint that distinguishes them from every other generation. Now, I'm from the me generation, so why can't they do a we generation? Just be nice. They could do it. It's just a matter of showing kids that kind is the new cool. That's what our motto is, kind is the new cool.
Part of the program that I put together is empowering kids, because if kids are empowered in making that change, they're a part of it. And when you're a part of something, you're going to want to actually do something about it and make change. And one of the things that I tell kids all the time, and it's so true, these kids have the opportunity at their feet to have kindness and integrity be their footprint of their generation in this world. And I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that happens. We're doing a kindness quilt, and I'm going to be bringing it with me to the schools.
We just started a kindness quilt where kids, they perform an act of sincere kindness. It has to be sincere. And because behind every act of kindness, there's a story too, right? It's a person doing something nice, really two stories, technically. And it's just the 5x5 piece. They can make whatever they want as long as they send it with their story, what they did, to whom, how it made them feel, and that kind of stuff, and why they did it.
And then that way, as it grows, bring it with me to the schools and show them one small thing. Look how it's growing, and they could see how it grows. But behind every one of those squares is an actual story of someone being kind to another person.
I love that.
I firmly believe that if one person said or did something kind to Shane that day, he'd still be here. And you never know, that one kind gesture it could save a life. It literally could save a life, because you can make somebody, like, wow, that's cool. Then you're going to do something kind to someone else because it's going to make you happier. I ran out of the cards. I have these little cards I've made up for Shane. They're kindness cards. And if you do an act of kindness, just give it to the person. Say, this is in honor of Shane, memory of Shane. Just go do something nice for somebody else. And it's so much easier to be kind. But my thing is, with the kids is, first, you can't be kind to other people if you're not kind to yourself. And if you don't feel good about yourself without being conceited, that's the ego. Just self-confident, if somebody says something about me, whatever, I don't care. Let them, I know I'm a good person, and focusing on the things that they can do versus what they can't do.
Well, Sandy, thank you for your time today and sharing Shane with us, and for being a part of our movement. And
thank you for what you're doing. You're my inspiration, honestly, and I hate to put that kind of pressure.
It takes a village. It takes all of us, and I'm happy to know you. I'm sorry under the circumstances, but I'm happy to know you, and I'm sure that if our listeners want to learn more about this kindness quilt, they will definitely reach out to you.
They can go to shanesimagination.org.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
after Mallory's suicide, I got a consistent number of new clients whose parents were worried because their child was depressed or upset or anxious. And it turned out that the parent didn't necessarily know what the impetus was, why their child was so down. And it turned out, one thing I kept hearing over and over and over, now remember, preteens they're not awesome at putting their feelings into words. But what they were able to tell me is, I feel like Mallory. I feel like that girl Mallory. And I heard that 3 and 4 and 5 times, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's something here. What's happening in the community is actually some sort of redemption, because these kids have found a way, tragically, right? But they found a way to distinctively, everybody knows what that means, right? I don't have to ask them another question. I know they're depressed. They're saying, I feel like that girl Mallory. And that was an important part of my career with these kids. And I still have kids that still come in and say, you know that girl Mallory? I feel like her. And instantly I know what I have to work on, and they know I know. So if there's any pinpoint of brightness that has come out of any of this in the community, maybe it's that.